Hey guys, welcome to Money, Sex, and God. I'm here in my living room, a little change of pace with Ken Fried, and we are going to be doing some embodiment stuff first, and he's going to be gifting us with some music and getting into our bodies before we chat about penises and shame and all the other topics that are going to blow your minds. So, yeah.
Cool.
Sally?
Michelle.
Okay, I'm going to just move.
Okay.
Okay, we have to talk now.
What is talking?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Are we close enough? Can they see us? Yeah. I'm so used to being in my little room.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Ken Fried.
Oh my God, I mispronounced your last name. I've never said your last name.
Yeah, that was the first time.
Wow.
Now you know.
Fried. That makes more sense.
Yeah, Fried.
For who you are.
Exactly. It's all about freedom and liberation. So, yeah, I think there's many ways to introduce myself, but I think what brought us together as a jumping off point is on my website, seizeYourSword.com, I share a story called Penis Power, which is my journey in overcoming penis shame.
Guys, it's so fucking good. It's so good. So good.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Keep going.
We will.
But my God.
Yeah, and it was quite a journey to put that out. And so my path and my journey and the work that I do is really about how do we show up courageously and vulnerably in the world and take a stand for ourselves and speak our truth. And, you know, what I'm passionate about is how we create reality when we have the courage to speak our truth.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's who this is. I'm just like blown away at that flute situation that just happened. I'm still, my body is still like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Ken has such medicine for all of us. And that's why I wanted him on here, because really you can speak to money, sex, and God all at once.
Yeah.
In your own journey. And there's a part of me that wants to start us with you talking about you, giving us your journey and your story. Mm. Not too much though, because you guys will read more of it.
Sure. So the penis power journey?
And if we could also go through the journey of God.
Mm. Yeah.
If we can intermingle it.
Sure.
Because that's something about you that is really profound, is Ken has a sense of truth to him that you don't see in many people, except for a lot of the people on Money, Sex, and God, gratefully. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
I think I've spent a lot of time contemplating this, and I'd say that for a long time, my journey was very much broken into parts. Mm-hmm. I was broken into parts and perceived that those different parts needed repairing or fixing or healing. So I was on a journey for a while where I was hyper focused on career and like success in the world. And so I pursued engineering and I became an engineer and I worked for Boeing in R&D and I had like clearances and I couldn't talk about the projects I was on and I achieved the success that I like dreamed of. And yet I was fundamentally deeply unhappy, unfulfilled, like unsatiated by life. Mm. And that was the launching pad into, let me explore my health. And so then I focused for years and years, for like 10 solid years on the journey of, I need to heal. So I talk about it in Penis Power, but I've had type 1 diabetes since I was a little baby. And so then the journey became about, okay, so there's this other thing that I could fix. And if I fix it, and heal the diabetes, then I'll be free and then I'll be happy and then I'll be joyous and everything. And then I'll have access to all that I want. So my journey was consumed with repairing my health. And what was interesting about that journey is that journey drove me deeply into myself through immense amounts of cleansing and fasting and really intensive yogic style protocols and practices for years and years. And where that all led me was to a unification of the parts, realizing that there's no separation between all these parts. It's all the same game. And we've talked about this before, like the illusion that there's anything to fix or repair, or that something's broken that needs to be fixed, whether it's the size of my cock, or whether it's that I have a pancreas that's not producing insulin. Like these things, like we're born in the world with the circumstances that we're born into. And so the point that's coming to me in this moment is like the obsession with fixing or changing circumstances so that I could get access to what I wanted. And that only brought me to realizing I'm whole and complete and perfect as I am. And I've been believing that I'm something other than the fundamental spirit that dwells within. And so the journey through all of this has been to coming home and remembering who I truly am. And in that space, there is no insecurity. There is no lack of confidence. There is no inadequacy or inferiority. It's no, I'm whole and complete. I'm an extraordinary man. And I'm a spirit in this vessel that I've been given in this life. Mm-hmm. And what happens when I own that, embrace it, and surrender to it, and love it, and accept it, and just dance with that, mm-hmm. rather than resisting it.
And so why do you think, because you coach as well, right?
Yeah.
And why do you think people resist that homecoming? Yeah. I don't really know. I'm throwing out the question.
Yeah, it's a great question. In my opinion, it's because the journey that we're talking about here is not for the faint of heart. Right. It's an extremely intense journey. And I often say to my clients and the people I'm working with that this path requires a complete dismantling of who you think you are. Yeah, complete dissolution and dismantling of all that is unreal, untrue, illusion, distortion, and the ego is deeply invested in all of that. So it's meticulous, attentive work that requires unrelenting commitment, and it's work. And there's feeling discomfort, going into unexplored and unfamiliar spaces, not knowing who you are as you redefine and allow who you truly are to emerge into your experience. Mm-hmm. It can be frightening and disorienting, and so
and lonely. When you first get there, for me it was really lonely. Yeah. So I found all you guys. Yeah. So there's a willingness that you have to go into your pain. This has been a theme today. A willingness to just dive into it. Sometimes not even knowing what's on the other side, right? Which this brings me to penis power. Yeah. Because from us talking before, you didn't quite know exactly what you were going to do with it or why you were writing it or what was happening. But tell us about that journey of creating and what it is, because I don't think everyone knows.
Yeah. I go into detail in each chapter with it's a hero's journey, fundamentally. And I tell the story through very specific experiences from my earliest childhood all the way to present time that elicit the journey that I've gone on to basically live in complete and total isolation. There was this thing that I was carrying inside of me that I was so ashamed of that I could barely even acknowledge it existed to myself for most of my life. Mm-hmm. So I was living in a place where I had a secret that I would not let anyone find out about. And it was all based on my own distorted thinking about myself. So I lived in a prison of my own creation. And so I often describe that the work I do is liberating the body from the prison of the mind. Mm. That's really what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. Letting the body be free from the constraints of the mind. Mm. And so the beginning of the journey was I have the secret. I don't want anyone to ever find out. I'm gonna do everything to keep it locked in a box, buried underground, on and on, to arriving at a place of I can't not share this. This has to be told, because my journey was so extraordinarily intense, and I know that there's other men and women living with the little box locked up inside, petrified for anyone to find out. Mm-hmm. And so I came back from deep medicine work in Ecuador 2 years ago, and it was clear, we need to tell this story. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, how am I going to tell this story? I was like, what do I do?
Yeah, I get that a lot. You get a download and then you're like, okay, great. And how do I write this book? What do you mean? Yeah. How do I do this? Yeah. And it was as simple as sitting down and committing that I'm going to tell this. And and then the house shows up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just sitting and committing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the thing for me is, and I go into this in the story and I don't want to give it away, I've known at different points, and I still to this day, even in this moment right now, that I'm living not just for myself, I'm living for the collective. Right. And so what's guiding me more and more in how I live my life is I'm literally both the character and the actor in my own drama.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that this is a story that's going to impact people, my life, how am I going to choose to engage with what life is presenting me in this moment, knowing that one day I'm going to share this and it's going to profoundly affect many people.
Right. I was just talking to Chrissy before you came over, and we were talking about like the fascination. If we can come from a place of fascination and sex and money and God, then everything just right flows. There's comments. Can I read them real
please.
quick? Okay. Let's see. Everyone says hi. Dancing with Ken. Someone says Jeff needs to resume lessons with his own flute.
There you go, Jeff.
Okay, cool. If you guys have questions for Ken, you can shoot. Oh my God, it's already 8:25. What? I want to keep talking. We'll do another 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, can I say one thing?
Yeah, of course.
That I think was great in what you shared. What I've noticed in myself and in others is the fear of descending, the descent process. And that's something that I really stand by, is in order to ascend and climb the highest mountain peaks, we need to descend. The ascent is actually descent. And so it's the courage to descend into the darkness, the pain, the fear, the insecurity, whatever it is. The ultimate realization I think we all come to have when we actually descend is, wow, it's a lot. I made it out to be a lot scarier than it actually is. And one of the things that came true for me was that darkness and light is actually the same thing. And so we're so afraid of the darkness. And then once we recognize, like, oh, that's just the same. That's just like the same thing. That's the same energy. There's nothing I need to do to change it, fix it, move away from it, run away from it. Then it's it's energy.
It's totally. It's all just
feel the energy.
Feel it. Like, just let it be. There's I love just like witnessing places in my body. I started doing this when I was going through my sexual awakening, where I would find tension, and I would just notice that, like, oh, that's a different energy than like the energy right here. And it wasn't like good, bad, wrong. It was just like, oh, different, interesting. And so that there's no labeling, there's no I gotta remove it, like, you're in it. You're in it. And so good. What else do we want to talk about? There's so much. When Ken and I get in a room together, it's like, woo! Can we talk about castration?
Yeah, let's do it. Want to lead us into that?
Do I, or do I just want to like bomb it right there? And
castration.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I've been speaking about this for a while, and I'd say it's pretty edgy in the collective right now, which is that, the conversation that's happening back and forth about men feeling safe with women, women feeling safe with men, and fundamentally, as an empowered, awakened man who's on the ascension path, I've made contact with a dynamic that lives within that's ancient in nature, which is the fear that when I open up and allow myself to expose my tender, soft, gentle heart of a lion, that in the exact moment where I fully burst open is the moment that I'm going to be castrated. And my masculinity is going to be.
And where does that come from?
It's a good question. I know different people would give different answers. My sense is it comes from times that have been forgotten and erased from history on this planet, where my sense is where women were in power. The feminine was running the show.
I mean,
and
clearly that was a thing.
Yeah,
right? Like, clearly that was there.
Exactly.
And then patriarchy happened, but
and what happened in that space when the power dynamics became distorted and were enacted in ways that maybe weren't of the highest order towards men. So there's definitely a culture where we look towards, I would say we lean towards women as the victims of masculine oppression. And I'm speaking to a time where it was actually the reverse, where men were oppressed by women. And who wants to talk about that?
And here I'm going to get really edgy and everyone's going to yell at me. And is this not still happening?
Yeah.
Right? Like, is this not, I just had this realization last week. There's, you know, because I do the work that I do and I work with so many women that have gone through sexual trauma, right? Inside of their bodies, there's this immense rage, grief, right? And with that rage and grief, there isn't necessarily right now enough allowance in their own bodies to hold that and to like process it on their own. And so what's happening is we're spitting it out, right? We're spitting it out and we're just castrating, like just, right? Shutting it down. And it's fear. And it comes from a very different place than this heart-centered, like rage, which is allowed, right? And totally, well, it's all allowed. It's all great. It's all like learning and it's all amazing and there's nothing that we need to do. But there's a different, it seems like there's a different way of relating that women can step into, where rather than bashing men, we can come into a place of like unity, right? And for what I've seen, the way that I've been working it is in healing my own inner masculine, right? Because everyone is just a mirror. It's like, you're just a mirror of my masculine side. That's clear. And any projections I'm putting onto you is actually just looking into like, where in my own masculinity am I not fully accepting and loving?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's huge. There's so much in what you're sharing, and to me, that's why I say penis power is less about the penis and more about the power. Because when we're fully embodied in our power, then there's space to allow for your projections, right, and not take it personally.
Right.
And there's also space for, whether you're a woman or a man, to feel the rage, but not need to rationalize or create story around why it is okay or right to feel the rage. Mm-hmm. There doesn't need to be any story. You're feeling rage, great. It's an emotion. Feel the energy.
Right.
It doesn't need to be directed or rationalized for why it's there,
right,
or why it was created or any of that. Like, let that all go and just feel the rage.
Mm-hmm.
And that requires what we've talked about before, a safe space, mm-hmm, where it's okay, mm-hmm, and your rage can be received, mm-hmm, and held.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like screw the paradigm of spiritual analysis.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're done, y'all. Like, we're done. We're finished. And in that, okay, so last point.
Okay.
Unless you have anything else on that.
No, but I think we should read the comments once more before.
Dana just loves us so much.
Okay.
Dana, I love you. She's resonating, feeling this truth in her bones, and so much compassion. Thank you, sweet love. Jeff says, I'm in the middle of a 1-year no dating or sex promise to myself because I can't read the rest of your comment, Jeff. Hang on, because oh gosh, they keep commenting. It's so delicious. Focus. Okay, he said, this is maybe something you can talk to. I'm in the middle of a 1-year no dating or sex promise to myself because I need and want to focus on my own growth, and also because I'm not sure how to move forward in today's relationship climate. Just loving you there, Jeff.
Yeah, that's amazing, Jeff. I honor the commitment you have to yourself and to really getting clear within yourself of what the dynamics are that are at play. And I would say that year that you're spending is a deeply valuable year. And I've done different things like that myself to get to know yourself, so that when you do emerge, the clarity and the alignment that you have with self is significant.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to Ariel about this, right? Like, it's in relationship, and Chrissy talked about it too, our primary job is always like, what is this channel? Mm-hmm. Like vertical. She said, I think it was Chrissy that said it. She said, there's a vertical relationship rather than a horizontal relationship. Like, we're up and down in it, and we're constantly checking in and tuning into that. And then everything outside of us is just like little fascinations. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. It's just little, and it's the same in sex, right? We do the same thing in sex. Like, it's this inner alignment. with ourselves in pleasure and in desire, and then everything outside of us is just like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I'm curious about that, and it's a playground.
Yeah.
Can we speak to, and I don't know, because I don't know how prepared you are for this conversation,
Yeah.
but can we speak to, you said something to me the other day about how sex to you is the final frontier of your spiritual development.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go into too much vulnerable
Yeah.
detail, but I would like to, because I think that's so right on. So I'd love for them to hear about it.
Yeah, I think actually Jeff's comment really helps to set the tone for this part of the conversation, because I've spent so many years in the cave inside of myself doing the inner work to really come into deep relationship with the masculine and feminine polarities within, and to really understand like what is going on inside of me, because it's not as simple as like, oh, connect with your higher self. Like, great, what does that mean? And it means, yeah, there's polarities and there's dynamics playing out, and always. And so I've been like the ascetic yogi who's been like in himself doing all of this work, and where my journey has brought me to, both with the diabetes, which metaphysically is resisting life, the inability to enjoy the sweetness of life, and we replace sweetness with like joy, pleasure, sex. Exactly. And so for me, it's edgy, because given the story that I share in Penis Power, given the resistance to life and sweetness and sex and joy and pleasure, I am now on the edge of the final frontier of going into, what does it look like to descend for me personally into the realm of sexuality and pleasure and joy through the body, the physical body.
And I'm glad you're saying that and putting that there, because there is a bypassing of our physical body that happens sometimes when we're floating in spiritual up here.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I mean, those of you that have been watching me, I went the opposite path, where I started in sex and then found spirit through sex, right, later. And so it's kind of why I wanted you to speak on it, because I speak from that vantage point.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure that because the whole point of everything, right? God, money, sex, the whole point of all of that is really just to like let our spirits, I don't know what, soar, right? Like soar on this planet. And so when we have that already, like that spiritual soaring happening, then the play of everything else is easy.
Yeah.
Right. And it's much easier, at least for me, to work with someone who's already in that spiritual space and then let them play, versus like let's get them there first, because that's a personal journey, and not one that's really my job to guide.
Yeah, one other thing that comes up for me is when I speak about the descent. To ascend, we must descend. There's definitely a hyper-focused culture, I'd say, in the spiritual movement around ascending and transcending.
Yeah.
And
oh God, transcending. Can we just get rid of that word?
Yeah, I don't need to
like, are we done with that?
Yeah. And even if we look at the ascension community, okay, we're going to ascend. Great. And what I found in the work that I'm doing in my own life with the healers and coaches that I'm working with, and the work that I'm doing with clients, is that the descent, more specifically, is the descent into the body. Yeah. It's into the physical ground 3D experience. Yeah. Like, I don't need to get lost in conceptual frameworks and spin out. We've talked about it for years and years, fixing, healing, resolving, looking at all these pieces, belief systems, whatever it is. Yeah. Versus the process of, oh my God, I'm human. I'm sitting here. I feel sensation. It's hot. It's cold. There's traffic. Like, I'm noticing that I feel tense and contracted. Like, it's actually getting into the body. And for me personally, the last year has been a like hyperspeed descent into the body, and it's changing my life in profound ways.
Get ready.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, I don't know, the way I see it is my journey on this earth is to let my spirit dance in my body. And so anytime that I'm up in my head and I'm not in my body, I'm not actually living.
Yeah.
I don't want to, like, this isn't living for me. I live in my skin, and at least for now, until I'm gone.
Yeah.
Right, this time around. And so mastery of this rooted feeling. so that we can have that. It's like bliss. It's bliss, guys. It's bliss. Okay, we should probably stop because I've got to get on with Joshua in a little bit. But can you tell them more about what you're up to and how they can find you and how they can stalk you? And
Sure. I'd say the first...
can I check comments?
Yeah, check comments. I'll speak while you do that.
Okay.
The first way is you can go to one of my websites, seizeyoursword.com. And whether you're a man or a woman, this is a profoundly enlightening journey into the heart of a man and into the reclamation process for a man facing deep insecurity and shame. And interestingly enough, I began this journey focused on working with men, and what's emerged is that women are the ones that are feeling called to work with me through penis power. So it's fascinating. Yeah. So check that out, seizeyoursword.com. And also there's a summit that's launching next week, Trusting Our Men.
Good.
Yeah, and I was interviewed for that summit and had an amazing conversation about the cock and power and just showing up in the world as an empowered man through shame. And so I'd say check that summit out. There's a really solid lineup of speakers, and that's at Trusting Our Men. And as always, if you feel inspired or something's alive inside of you that you want to share with me, then connect with me on Facebook and shoot me a message. I'd love to start the conversation.
Thank you. We have some questions.
Cool.
So I'm glad I looked. Dana says we're both so wise.
Thank you.
Or something. Whatever. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. Yeah. That's the truth. No one knows anything.
Playing.
We're just playing. Alexander says, Ken, where's penis power available? You told us, right?
Seize Your Sword.
And the link is also in the comments, guys.
Yeah.
And then Genevieve, what does chastity reside in whatever process you take people through? I think you meant to say where. So Alexander, sex is a much more global definition than what we're putting ourselves. It's not this, right? And so the journey that I take people through is really understanding what does sex look like for them in their body. And everyone's nervous system is wired very differently. I'm going to talk about this at 10 o'clock, so come back. It's wired very differently. And so chastity, there are ways of wiring the body toward like insane sexual pleasure without anything to do with your cock. Like not even a thing. Same with women and their pussies. Actually, you can have that on your neck. And it's all just about wiring the body the way that you want to wire it. If the focus is not genital focused, or if you choose, you can play with the genitals. Like you just get to go wherever you want to go. And if you don't want the sexual energy to be on, like if the chastity is in order to go into a resting or a healing phase sexually, that's still a sexual experience because you still have sexual energy in you, even if you're resting or healing. And so it's locating it and moving it through the body as a way to bring light and healing. I've definitely been through periods of abstinence and specifically for like that internal healing mechanism to kick in. And so that's also, I'm not sure what the chastity reasoning is, but you can totally play with that energy as well. Okay, let me see if there's anything else. Can't wait to watch from the beginning. Love you, love you, love you. Lots of love yous.
Love you.
Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Ken, for being here.
Thank you, Genevieve.
This is so good.
This is fun.
I'll be on with Joshua in 15 minutes. Joshua Falcon Gray. It's going to be amazing.
Check it out. Soul brother. Solid guy.
I love that I'm ending with the men. My like feminine energy is so happy right now. And yeah, reach out to Ken, guys, if you have questions. He's super available to connect because that's just the kind of person he is. So thank you again.
Thank you, Genevieve.
Bye, guys.